welcome to the next episode of Why We Do It. And today, this is a special one. I'm very, very excited to have Brad Nadauld from Cape Town joining us. Brad, how are you?
Very good, Jim. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to do this.
My pleasure altogether. I tell you what. So you are an amateur athlete and also of some distinction. We'll find out in a second. And also you work with thousands of amateur athletes as part of your job. So that's also going to be very interesting in this. And there's a lot to talk about because you have got some story, and I've known you for a while, and this is going to be fun. But before we jump into that, a new thing I'm playing with is having a notional free sponsor where the guest chooses their sponsor. So you have chosen your sponsor for the show, and who is that and why?
Yeah, Jim, my head says it should be Essex because of the amount of running shoes I go through, but my heart says Marathon Travel and Tours because if I could travel the world and do races around the world, I would be as happy as Larry.
Paid for by them to do it. What a pleasure.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, dream job if anyone can do that for a living. So I'm with you. I'm totally with you. That's a good.
I am really just putting it out there. I am open to offers. So if
hopefully Marathon Tours and Travel will see this and free sponsorship, and then they will get all over that for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So we talked about an amateur athlete with some distinction. I mean, you have 4 Comrades Marathons under your belt. You have 6 Ironman finishes under your belt. And I asked you how many marathons. You're not actually sure. Over 100 was your answer. So, and that's not to count loads and loads of other things that you've done in shorter distances and running and Ironman and God knows what else. But we'll get into as much of that as we have time for. Before we do that, though, we're going to start at the most recent part of the story. Excuse me. We're going to start with this year. We're going to start with the Comrades Marathon of this year. Oh my God! Brace yourself, people. This is a story, and you're going to tell us what Comrades is all about in a second, because not many of our thousands of listeners actually are probably on this side of the world of that familiar with it. But you qualified in 2024 in the Cape Town Marathon with 1 minute to spare, and you got to the start line this year. So tell us what Comrades is briefly, and then tell us about the 2025 race that you did this year.
Yeah, Jim, Comrades for South Africans, and you would know this, I mean, you went to school in South Africa. Comrades for South Africans is just part of our DNA. Like people, like Comrades is just like Smarties or Skittles. It's part of everyday life in South Africa. But as soon as you start talking to people outside of South Africa about Comrades, like their eyes glaze over because it's just like it's too much. So the Comrades Marathon, it's the world's oldest and largest ultra marathon. It started back in 1921 by a guy by the name of Vic Clapham, and he started it as a tribute to his fallen comrades in World War I. He was looking to do something, and he thought this foot race between these two towns in South Africa would be a fitting tribute. And it's depending on which way you run it, because it alternates each year. It's either 87 kilometers or 90 kilometers, depending which way. And this year it was the down run, which is 90 kilometers, and it runs from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. And like many South Africans, as you did as well, Jim, I grew up around the race. So like I remember watching it on TV every single year. My dad was a Comrades runner, so we used to go down every single year growing up to watch my dad. If he wasn't running, we'd watch it on TV. And it was just really part of the South African fabric, particularly during the 1980s. There was a guy by the name, and many of you listeners might know him, Bruce Fordyce, who just captured the imagination of the South African public back then too. He was this blonde, blue-eyed youngster who was just cleaning up, and he ended up winning 9 Comrades in the 1980s. He was a phenomenal athlete, and that just really captured the South African imagination and turned this race into this mainstream thing. And I talk 90 kilometers, like if you actually think about it, and this is very much South African as well, we call it the Comrades Marathon. It's not a marathon, it's an ultra marathon, but we call it a marathon. So it's essentially 2 marathons back to back, and then you throw in a park run to finish it. That's what it is. You've got 12 hours to finish it in. There's 1,000 meters of climbing, 5,000 feet. So it's not easy. It's like not a world marathon major flat marathon. It's tough. It goes through some really like gnarly, I call it mongrel, like the courses. It's just that part that's dirty and it's hot and it's really hard, but it is one of the most incredible runs you can do. So I grew up around this race and wanted to do it and have managed to do it a few times. And I'd taken some time off. My previous Comrades was back in 2013 and then took 12 years off and decided that I wanted to run it again this year.
And to jump in here, Can I just jump in for a second, Brad? Because I think this is an important part of the story that you're about to tell. And you're talking about the 2013 to now. I'm going to throw a picture up quickly of you in the London Marathon. So here you are in the London Marathon. The first thing I've got to point out is this is April in London. You're wearing 3 shirts there. You've got a long sleeve kind of light shirt. You've got a t-shirt above that. And then you've got a Coach Parry Brad vest on top of that. I don't know what the issue is with the weather in London for you coming over from South Africa. Everyone else seems to be okay with sleeveless shirts. But I think that the point here is you've done all these incredible running and Ironman events. And we can see from the picture that in rugby terms, you would be politely and in a complimentary terms, you would be probably called a unit from a rugby point of view. It's a bill that's probably not conducive for ultramarathon running and Ironman. So I think it's important that for folks who don't know you, that it puts in context what you've achieved, because you don't really have the build, do you, for long distance running?
No, Jim, and I'm glad you actually showed this photo, because this was the race that sort of got me to come back to Comrades. So I just really lucky, ended up getting a London Marathon entry. I hadn't run for years. I got an entry to the London Marathon in 2023 and was about 12 weeks out, had done no training. And I was like, I wonder if I can defer this thing to 2024, because I'm definitely not in shape to run London. And the answer was no, I couldn't defer it. So I had 12 weeks to go from being like super overweight, unfit to getting London Marathon done. And that was the impetus to get me going. And you talk about being a unit. I'm not short. I mean, I'm definitely not built like a Kenyan. I'm 6 foot in sort of all terms. I'm 6'6", 6'7". I'm just under 2 meters tall. And yeah, I mean, London Marathon that day, I probably clocked in at 145, 150 kilograms. So like well over 300 pounds. So I am, definitely not built like a Kenyan. So yeah, I wouldn't be out of place on the rugby field. Long distance running definitely wasn't what I was built for, but I do enjoy it. So
here we are. Now we're getting ready for Comrades 2025. Yeah. So talk us through this year's race.
Yeah, so managed to do London, then did Cape Town that following year, and I ended up running a 5.5 hour Cape Town marathon, needed to qualify in under 5. A year later, went back and snuck my Cape Town qualifier, as you said, and then I was going to Comrades. That was the plan. So slowly built up and worked towards it, and did what I needed to do, checked all the blocks off, and yeah, got to Comrades, and more than anything, Jim, like I was just so excited to be back on the start line. It had been a long journey, and it was amazing to be back there. And I went in there with the explicit goal of, yes, I do want to finish, but I want to just take this in again. Like I've been given another opportunity to run this race, and I want to really just soak it up. So, and that's exactly what I did. I went out there, obviously with the goal to finish, and I knew that I was going to be close to the sort of line along the way. And Comrades have cutoffs along the way that you have to reach at certain points so they can open up the roads. Because I mean, it's quite a race. I mean, at some stage we run on one of the national highways. So they shut down one of the national highways for us to run. So they've got to clear it of runners. And this year they changed the cutoff slightly, that they were quite generous. In past, like you would have to really move along the route to hit those cutoffs. And this year they extended those a bit. So the pressure was really off on the route. So someone like myself could actually run this race the way it should be run from a splits perspective. And the Comrades down run's quite an interesting one, because the first half of the Comrades down, I remember the first time I ran the down run, the first half was one of the hardest, if not the hardest marathon I'd ever run. There's so much climbing in the first half of the down run, like 80% of the climbing on the down runs in the first half. So like there's nothing down about the first half of the down run. So you want to really be conservative and start slowly. And the plan was to run a negative split. And for a lot of people, you think negative split is like, it's like really hard. But to do that at Comrades, to do that, Comrades is really tough, because I mean, halfway is 45 Ks. You still got to go another 45 Ks. So the goal was to go through halfway in about 6:03, 6:04, and then reel it in the second half. And that's exactly what I did. I went through halfway feeling good, went through 6:04 that I knew I had to run.
So we should point out at the end, this is important, there's a 12-hour cutoff at the end, and it's a brutal cutoff. They have a gun, they stand with their back, not a literal gun, but kind of starter's gun. They might as well have a real gun. They have a literal gun. They stand with their back to the runners so they can't feel sorry for the runners. And at 12 o'clock on the second, bang, the gun goes, the gate shuts. You cannot cross the line. So it's 6:03, 6:04 at halfway. You're effectively 3 to 4 minutes behind the halfway pace. You've got to make this up in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And you 3 to 4 behind on the halfway pace, but the app predicts for the whole race. So at halfway, it's predicting a 12:08 finish for me because I've gone through halfway in 6:04. So everybody who's tracking at home, obviously I told people close to me that was the plan. But for most people who are tracking me, we're going, oh, geez, it's done. There's no way he's going to finish this thing. He's gone through halfway in 6:04. It's predicting a 12:08. And the Comrades down run, you almost want to run it in 3/3. So the first third, you're going to be slower than what your average pace is. The second third is going to be pretty much on par for what the pace is you need to finish. And then the final third, there's lots of downs. And if you've behaved yourself in the first 2/3, you can make up a lot of time in that final third. And that's when you reel it all in. And that's exactly the way it played out. And there were times where I was like, gee, this is just so hard. And but I got to that final third and I knew, and we had told people, because we'll probably get into that part of the story. Like, we help a lot of people run Comrades. And I've told people this so many times, but I've never personally been in that situation where I've been able to. And we say to people, if you save yourself for that point in the race, you don't need to be able to run fast. You just need to be able to run, and you will make up so much time. And I got to that point able to run, and slowly was reeling in the time. And as I was getting,
let me cut in again. Let me cut in because you talked about the messages. I was tracking you like mad. This is a good point to bring this in because it builds, I think, where we're going with this. I was tracking you like mad from early on. I saw your halfway time. I saw probably your kind of 2/3 time. I'm thinking, he's blown it. What an absolute shame. I was gutted for you. And then I saw the pace kind of just picking up at the beginning of that last third, and I thought, come on, man, you can do this. So you're 8 minutes. The predictor is saying 12:08 as what your estimated finish time is. And this is when I started messaging you. So I literally texted you saying, hi Brad, I'm sure you can't see this live, but I have to message. I've been tracking you all day. You're not long through Pinetown, probably on the lovely Cowies Hill. Just want you to know I've started shouting at the tracker as there is nothing else I can do to help. You'll know how tight it's been all day, and you've been holding it at the right pace for ages, but you need to dig deep now, bro. And in capitals, I say, come on, dude, you can do this. Channel some of that earlier pace and bring it home. And then that was about 2. So that was at 20-3. The cutoff's at 5 o'clock. So 2 hours and 20 minutes left. With an hour left at 4 o'clock, I said, you're at Sherwood and you've closed the gap by half. You're now 4 minutes over the estimated finish. Come on. And then about half an hour later, you got half an hour left. Oh my God, smashing it. You're at the 86-kilometer tracker. You are inside the 12 hours on the estimated finish. That's amazing. Feel the end. Go, go, go. So you pick it up now. You're at 86 Ks. You're finally back on the timer tracker telling you can actually make this. What's going on with you in the real world down there?
Yeah, so I mean that last sort of third was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Had to really dig deep to pull it back. And hearing that, Jim, like, I got so many messages while this was happening. I obviously had my phone on me, but I wasn't checking it. And I've gone back subsequently and read those messages. And it is the coolest. Yours, I mean, there's a whole bunch of, but it's the coolest sort of documentation of what was going on the outside while I was on the inside. And I did it this week again. I went back and read them because it just brings me so much joy, sort of seeing what people were going through while I was going through it. But got to 86 Ks to go, which is about 4 Ks to go to the finish. And I was done, Jim. Like, I was absolutely finished. I've run 86 Ks. I'm shattered. It's now dark in Durban. And I'm going, it's touch and go if I'm going to finish this thing. And my business partner was along the route a couple of times. He's the official Comrades Marathon coach. And he was along the route sort of like egging me on. And with 4 Ks to go, I said to him, Linz, I can't do this. Like, I am done. I'm just so happy that I've got this far, because that was the final cutoff point on the route and that I'd got through. So I was able to make it to the finish. Yeah. So I was, whatever happened, I was going to do the distance. That was the first sort of goal for the day. And I said to him, you know what, whatever happens, like, I'm just so proud of, and geez, I get quite emotional talking. I'm just so proud of that I got this far. And I said to him, but I'm done. Like, I just cannot keep this pace up anymore. I'm finished. And he then texted everybody at the finish line, a couple of my colleagues, his wife, to get hold of my wife, and said, listen, he's going to finish, but time's off. So don't, like, they were sitting at the finish not knowing what was going on. And they were like, okay, cool. So he's told everyone at the finish, all bets off, like, it's done, like, don't worry about it. And he said to me, you just got to keep moving. Like, just whatever happens, give yourself a chance. So the plan was to keep moving. I wanted to get to the finish. I wanted, one of the big traditions after the 12-hour gun goes off is they have a lone bugler playing the last post. and it's
Brutal.
quite an emotional
Absolutely
moment. And I was like, I just want to get there to hear the last post. That's my goal. And he said to me, just keep moving and give yourself a chance. And with about 2Ks to go, he said to me, you've got 14 minutes to do the last 2Ks. And I was like,
wow,
7 minutes, okay, I can do this. Like, I've got to give myself a chance. And I just put my head down and went, truthfully, I went back and did the math. It wasn't actually 14 minutes to go. It was 13 and a half minutes that I'd given myself.
The boss was fibbing you. He was fibbing. Yeah.
So I did the second last kilometer in 7 minutes. And then I had what I thought was 7 minutes to do the last K. And I just literally grit my teeth and went as hard as I can. And by that time, you could hear, it was a street finish this year. You could hear the stadium, the announcer sort of egging people on, because the thing with Comrades too is probably 25% of the field finish in the last 20 minutes. Like it is, there's this massive rush. It's Parkinson's law.
And we should say we're talking 15 to 20,000 people in the entire field, which is why they close the motorway, because you can't put those amount of people down a normal road easily.
So it's just this absolute mass of people heading towards the finish. And I could hear the stadium announcer counting down as the time was like, you've got to go, you've got to go. I didn't know how far I was from the finish because it was a new finish. So I wasn't sure how far it was to the finish line. And I just went as hard as I could and was getting closer and closer. And I could see the lights from the finish and just went as hard as I could. And then got to a point where they were counting down 10, 9, and I could see the finish line. And I was like, I have to do this. And I got to the finish line. As they crossed the finish line, the gun went 1 second to spare, managed to finish.
11 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds.
Yeah, I ran
the line.
6:29 for my last K to get in under, which interestingly enough,
was probably your fastest kilometer.
My fastest kilometer of the day. In an ultra marathon, the 90th K was my fastest, which is amazing.
After 11 hours and 55 minutes, you had to then pull that out the bag.
And just what an experience, Jim. Like it was, just this relief and just so much joy.
I mean, not just for you. I mean, obviously the relief's huge for you. For us in small percentages. I'm sitting in Scotland watching a tracker. There's no live feed because of whatever the rights were. I was trying to find a live feed somewhere, but the TV rights didn't have it. It wasn't on YouTube. Couldn't see the live. Only had the tracker. And my whole family now has been sucked into this for the last 3 hours before this finish, and I'm updating them, and I'm running around the room looking at the tracker, waiting for you to hit each marker. And now it's 5 o'clock in South Africa, and I'm gonna go, come on tracker. And it takes a minute or two to update. So I knew it would be really close. And then suddenly at about 2 minutes past, bing, there's the update, 11:59:59, and my head nearly exploded. At that point, I then texted you my last message on this, where it's all in capital letters. It just says, "What!" Exclamation! I can't believe it. Oh my God. I know the Coach Parry pacing charts are pretty accurate, but you didn't need to prove it by finishing with 1 fucking second to spare.
Well, Jim, it's so funny you talk about the pacing charts. I'm actually sitting at my desk as we do this, and we obviously sell pacing charts at the expo, but my eyes are so bad that I actually have to print one for the visually impaired. So I carry this with me, and this is the pacing chart that I used. You can't see it, but the halfway split prediction, or my pacing to go through halfway, was 6:04:02, and I went through in pretty much that. My finish prediction time, or my pacing time, was 11:59:12. That was the plan. So yeah.
Well, you were 50 seconds late, and you nearly had a whole bloody heart attack.
Got to lift my game.
Let's pop this. Let's pop this picture up, and we're gonna go to something else in a second, just to finish this part of the whole thing. But here is you at the end, sitting down for a well-earned relax after 11 hours, 59 of stress, with your partner and friend and colleague, Lindsay Parry, the Comrades coach himself, of Coach Parry, who you work with too. And you can almost see the relief on both of your faces in that picture as he waves to someone who's obviously congratulating you.
Yeah, Jim, this photo is amazing. Lindsay's wife, Haley, actually took it. And we've had so many people in the sort of aftermath of this thinking we planned this as a marketing stunt for our business, which we didn't. I'll say that outright. It definitely wasn't. But this photo sort of just sums up the day. It's this just release of of everything. And I got to the finish, and anybody who was around Comrades this year, the finish was chaos. There were just so many people, and it was a new venue. It wasn't the best, and they've got lots of work to do. But I just literally found a wall that I could sit down against, and they had said to me, come to where they were to meet them, and I was like, no, I'm sitting down here. You come and find me.
Yeah,
and this is where they found me. So Lindsay came down and sat down while we were waiting for my wife to find us, and yeah, just sort of, I don't even think we were saying much. It was just a sort of
just
trying to wrap our head around what had happened.
Soaking up the glory of it all. Now we're going to finish this with one little bit. I'm going to play a couple minutes because I think it's worth it of one of these little clips that a well-known South African comedian by the name of Rory Petzer puts up on social media all the time. Turns out he also ran Comrades this year, and he was only a couple minutes ahead of you in that Stramash at the end, and his experiences were similar. So here's his next day, not all of it. It's a 3-minute clip. I'm going to play the first 2 minutes of this little clip that he posted on social media the day after this experience that you both had. Here we go. Let's just hear what he has to say about his whole experience, because I think this is absolutely brilliant.
Champions, look at this. Look at this. A brand new medal. Look at it. Smell it, taste it. Look at it. Beautiful. Brand new. Brand new. Look at it. What? Guys, what was that? Guys, I dug so deep yesterday, I found Man United's glory days. 40 kilometers, I was like, I'm done, I'm not finishing. And the darker the place you're in, the longer those kilometers take. They take forever, they take decades. It says 41 kilometers to go.
Several months later.
40 kilometers to go. And you're like, I can't do 40 meters. You know what kept me going? Every single South African champion on that route who was screaming, champion, champion, go, 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 you've got this. It's a different kind of messaging when people can see that you're in a dark place and you're looking down, fighting for your life. And they're like, keep on going, champion, keep on going, keep on going. Remember why you're doing this, keep on going, champion. Every time I heard that, it just kept me going. A few more steps, a few more steps, a few more steps. The Comrades Marathon for me is like the World Cup of running. Random strangers screaming and shouting for you all day. You feel like you see Akolisi running on the field in a World Cup rugby final. It's like everyone just has this mission. We've got to get these people over the line. We've fellow runners giving me Lucozades when I don't even know where I was. Someone gave me a little bottle of brandy, which I obviously didn't drink because I would have thrown up and died. Just the thoughtfulness and the love on the route yesterday. I cannot put it into words how much I love being a South African and how much I love Comrades Marathon. I still don't know how I finished. And I finished 11:56:56. Like I could smell the gunpowder when I was strolling in. There were at least 19 times yesterday that I knew I was not going to finish. I knew I was not going to finish. And I kept on just screaming to myself in my head what Rassie said to the Springboks. We saw in Chasing the Sun during the World Cup when he said, "You're liars, liars." I was like, Rory, you're a liar. You said you're getting a brand new medal. You're a liar. You're going to get this medal. You're a liar. You're a liar. I can't tell you the places my brain went yesterday. I cannot tell you. A runner came next to me, saw I was struggling. I don't know who it was. He said, champion, there's 3 hours left of this and you're getting a medal. And at that stage, I was like, I can't do 3 minutes, man.
There we go. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, just hearing Rory, I mean, Rory's known as the Minister of Champions here in South Africa. He is like one of the proudest South Africans you'll ever meet. He's a hell of a nice guy. And just to put into a bit of perspective, talking about and hearing him talk about how much he loves Comrades, I feel exactly the same way about the race. And I don't think people realize how big this race is in South Africa. To give you an idea, and like London Marathon sells out and the ballot's really big. So they open entries for Comrades this week here in South Africa of us recording this. Bear in mind, this is an ultra marathon, 87 kilometers, 2 marathons and a park run at the end of it. 22,000 entries. It's massive. The race sold out in 10 hours, Jim, this year. 10 hours.
Damn, I missed it. I can't believe it.
Like, it's mind-boggling to think. Like, I understand, like, marathon sell out, but an ultra marathon that is flipping hard to sell out in 10 hours is
Were you one of those?
Mind-boggling.
Were you one of those?
If my wife's not listening, yes. So I have into another one. But
did you trip and fall on your laptop and accidentally enter?
So Rory talks about the medals. Mine's here. It's on my mic stand. This is about the only medal. I don't know where the rest of my medals are, but my Comrades medal lives on my mic stand because that's where it landed up when I got back from Comrades this year.
Unbelievable. Right, let's go back to the beginning. This is about why we do it. So we're going to go back to young Brad as a kid growing up in South Africa. Talk us through your childhood, what you were into from a sporting point of view, what you weren't into, how the journey to this event started as a kid.
Yeah, Jim. I mean, I mentioned at the start of this chat that my dad was a Comrades runner, was a runner, and we used to go down and watch every year. But he was fairly sporty. He played football growing up and was a pretty decent footballer. And I remember we grew up in a little town in the middle of nowhere in South Africa, and he coached the primary school football team that I was in. And I've always been a heavy kid. I was always the kid that got selected last for these things. So like if it's you choose, I was always the fat kid that got chosen last. It was as simple as that. My brother, on the other hand, was a pretty handy footballer. So he was a couple of years older than me and played provincial football. And I always had the heart, but I just didn't have the skills or the physical ability to do any of that sort of stuff. So I played, but I was absolutely rubbish. And that was in my early years. And then as I got to high school, rugby in South Africa is massive, and my folks didn't want me playing rugby. So I didn't play rugby. And it was only late in my high school years where I decided, you know what, I want to play rugby. It looks so cool. And I found something that I was like really good at. So started playing a bit of rugby against their will, so much so that they never used to, like, wouldn't come and watch me play, never watch me play a game of rugby. If I wanted rugby boots, I used to have to take my pocket money and buy rugby boots. I'd save it up, and that's how I played rugby. So found something that I was fairly good at, and then out of school, went to varsity and discovered the joys of nightclubs and beers and cigarettes, and stopped being active at all, and just started chasing a radio career. That was sort of where my life went, and was in nightclubs, DJing in nightclubs, and it was living large, let me tell you. And had put on so much weight just from pure unhealthy lifestyle. Like it was like messy. Like how I made it out of my 20s, I'm not sure, to be honest. But it was while I was on radio, I've always had some business interests outside of the DJing side of things. And I met a guy, this is in 2007, who through business dealings, I had a meeting with, and he had a Comrades golf shirt on, like a golfer, like a collared shirt, and he had a bit of a limp. And this was, I met him in 2009. This was about 2 weeks after Comrades 2009, and he had a bit of a limp, and I put two and two together, and I was like, you must have run Comrades. That's why you have the limp. And he sort of just brushed it off, and I thought, that is so weird, because if anybody's run Comrades, you know that their favorite thing to talk about is running Comrades. So why is someone's
run Comrades? They're going to tell you.
They'll tell you exactly. It's almost like, how do you know someone's done Ironman? They're going to tell you they've done an Ironman. So he sort of brushed it off. We finished our meeting, and then afterwards, he said to me, "Do you want to know the story?" And I was like, "Please!" Like that's why I asked. And he went on to tell me one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard, Jim. This guy, also from pure lifestyle choices, ended up having a stroke. This is in the early 2000s, and was paralyzed. Was in hospital in a wheelchair. And the doctors said to him, "Richard, you're never going to walk again." And then he had friends that came to visit him in hospital, and they said, "Rich, what are you going to do now?" And he said to them, "I'm going to run Comrades." The guy was never a runner, like ever. And they thought, "Oh, yeah, whatever, like this guy's delusional." And he went on to tell me the story about how he ended up teaching himself to walk again. Like he used to go home in his wheelchair and pull himself up on his kitchen counters until he couldn't stand anymore. Then he'd fall back down into his wheelchair, and eventually taught himself to stand, eventually taught himself to walk. And it's a whole long story, but eventually he went on and ran and finished the Comrades Marathon. And I just thought to myself, holy smokes, if this guy can do it from where he was, you can do it. And I'd always had this nagging thing in the back of my head that I wanted to run Comrades, even through my 20s when all this partying was happening and I was putting on weight. Like every year, it's a South African thing. I used to sit and watch Comrades all 12 hours on TV. My dad wasn't running anymore by then, but I used to sit and watch it and wish that one day that I'm going to do this thing. And after I met Richard, this was in June 2009, I was like, that's it. I am in for 2010. And this is again another South African thing. We don't start running because we want to do a park run. Like I started running because I wanted to run Comrades. I mean, it's just
coach to Comrades, couch to Comrades. Yeah.
No, it's mad. Like no one in their right mind will do something, but South Africans will do that. And it says so much about our psyche, Jim. Like I mean, you understand South Africa and what you've been through. Yeah. The South African psyche, like nothing is too big. We will bite off and chew whatever we can. Like it's as simple as that. And I went at that stage, I was doing the afternoon drive on the largest regional radio station in South Africa. And I went on air that afternoon after I met him. And I proclaimed to the whole of Johannesburg and Gauteng that I was going to run Comrades in 2010. I went home and I Googled my local running club, and I found the running club. I went there the next day, started training, and it was like Muhammad Ali had arrived. The champ is here. The champ is here. I proclaimed that I was running, and to their sort of like, thankfully nobody talked me down. Like like thinking about it now,
that doesn't happen. If anyone wants to do it, the immediate because everyone knows a story like that, and someone in their family's done something like that. So as soon as someone says I'm up for it, everyone's like, right, go, you can do it.
Yeah, and to their credit, they were all in with me, but they must have been thinking, this guy's mad. There's no ways that this dude is going to run 90 kilometers in less than a year from now. And I also jumped on the bathroom scale that day, and I weighed 165 kilograms. I mean, I
looked that up. That's over 25 stone. I looked it up.
Yeah. I mean, that's massive. Like, no one in their right mind should be thinking about running Comrades. They should be thinking about losing weight because they're going to die. But here I am, told the whole of Joburg that I was going to be running Comrades on radio, and then at the running club, the same story, and just started the journey. I was like, I've got to do this, and did everything I needed to do, and started working. I
remember hearing the story a few years ago, and you talked about the first run you did at a local school pitch, I think. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was. There's a running club organization here in South Africa called Run Walk for Life, and their target market is females over 40 and unfit. And I went and joined that group because that's where I felt like I probably fit. And they start by walking you around, like that. Most of them operate out of schools, and they have hockey, like a field hockey field, which is about 400 meters around, and they walk you around there to start with. It's called Run Walk for Life. And I made it around probably 1.5 times, and I thought I was going to die. And that was walking; it wasn't even running. And I was like, oof, my joints are not loving me. But that's how I started. And just slowly every week built up a little bit, and slowly started adding short little runs in there, and then started working towards that. And around about the same time, my mom had been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So she was diagnosed a good few years before that, was in remission, but it had come back and it had spread to her bones, and it was terminal. But I decided that I was going to up the ante a little bit more, because I'm also the type of guy that if I don't tell people I'm going to do something, it's easy to sort of back out and chicken out. So I've got to up the stakes to hold me accountable that I'm going to do this. So I then decided that I was going to start raising some funds for one of the official Comrades charities, which was a charity called Pink Drive at the time, and they did breast cancer awareness. So I was going to do this to sort of in support for my mom. And my mom was never a runner either, Jim, which was quite interesting. She loved Comrades. She loved the running community, and she used to go down every year with my dad, like dragging 3 kids. I'm the youngest of 3 kids, drag all 3 of us down there, standing on the side of the road, making sure we're there to support my dad. But she wouldn't just support my dad. She was there to support everyone. Like Rory said, like, she's standing, doesn't matter who you are, she's there. And she loved Comrades, absolutely loved Comrades. So she was super excited that I was running, because my brother had run Comrades a couple of times before then too. But her baby, as she used to call me, was running Comrades. So she was super excited, and she was planning on coming down and being on the side of the road. And we started raising some funds towards that. I managed to run again. So funny, ran my qualifier that year in a 4:58, so 1 minute and some change to spare, and I was going to Comrades. That was the sort of comparison.
That was amazing to get to do that qualifier in that short period of time. That's incredible.
So basically going from absolutely nothing in June to running a marathon in under 5 hours in the beginning of March the following year. So that was the sort of timeline there. I then went on and did my first ultra marathon about 4 weeks later. Ran another marathon, and then we were 4 weeks out from Comrades, and I was on air. It was a Saturday morning. I was doing weekend breakfast at that time as well, and my cell phone rang. It was we were actually in news. It was the 7 a.m. news we were in. My cell phone rang, and I looked, and it was my wife calling, and she never phoned when I was on air because she just knew I couldn't take calls, and I knew something was up. So I answered the call, and she had phoned to tell me that my mom had passed away in her sleep the night before. This was 2 weeks out from race day. And I was absolutely gutted. I was very close to my mom. And those 2 weeks, I don't remember much, Jim. Like the 2 weeks between my mom passing away and Comrades race day are an absolute blur. I know we had a funeral. I know we raised a hell of a lot of money for charity in those 2 weeks. And before I knew it, I was on the start line, Comrades 2010. So like goal number 1 was to get there, which I did. And it was like, first time you run that race, it's so overwhelming because there's just so many people. It is so hard. It is so grimy and so gritty, and it was really tough. And I'd come into it like exhausted emotionally exhausted, and you've got to be on top of your game on Comrades, otherwise you're going to have a long day. And I, in hindsight, made a couple of mistakes. I went out slightly too fast trying to chase those cutoffs, and I ended up missing a cutoff at 67 Ks. So with about 20, no, it was about 27 Ks to go. I think it was with where I missed the cutoff and was pulled off the course. And I was absolutely gutted. I remember being shuttled in the little bus to the finish, and I sat down on the pavement, and I was physically broken. I mean, to go from 165 kgs to running 60 odd Ks in a year is a huge effort. And I was just physically broken. And I remember sitting on the pavement outside the stadium. I'd phoned my wife, told her where I was, and I just remember sitting there sobbing, absolutely sobbing, because I felt like I'd let everyone down. Like I felt like I had let everybody I had told that I was going to run Comrades. I felt like I had let everybody who had donated to the charity, that I'd let them down because I didn't finish. And I felt like I let my mom down because I didn't finish. But I made the decision there and then that I was going to come back next year and finish what I started. And
I know the story, but I can feel it in my chest right now. I'm kind of feeling it, just kind of choking slightly, because not only is it an unbelievably devastating and sad and unfortunate story, and must have been so hard to go through all of that in that short period of time. But for me, it resonates particularly because, as I think you probably know, my mother passed away from motor neuron disease, and was at my second Comrades when I was trying to get a Bill Rowan medal for her in a wheelchair, watching that, and I failed to get the Bill Rowan for her that year, and she passed away a couple of months later. So there's a huge connection to that story for me. So it's I mean, there's the why we do it piece here and in this podcast, and if you need any kind of stronger evidence of why things are important to us, that story in itself is huge. So but I mean, the coming back and the just finishing things off properly kind of rolls into the next year. And at this point, we switched to Ironman, because it's amazing. We talked about running and Comrades. You've got 6 Ironmans and a whole bunch of other triathlons under your belt. We sometimes barely talk about that when I'm catching up with you. But you threw Ironman in here just for fun on the way to actually achieving your first Comrades the next year.
Yeah, Jim, it's funny how things work out, because two of the things that came out of that failed attempt. The first one was my dad, who, when my brother ran his first Comrades, my dad actually ran the same year. So they didn't run together, but they did a lot of their training together. And with Comrades, experience is such a big thing. And with everything that was going on with my mom being ill, obviously my dad had bigger fish to fry. Like, me running Comrades wasn't even on the radar, to be honest. And I don't begrudge him that. But I remember him asking me that night on the phone, said to me, like, what are you going to do now? And he said, before I told him that I was going to go back, he said to me, if you go back next year, I'll make sure I'm there to help you. So that was the first bit. And he was. The year later, he was on the side of the road helping me sort of on race day. And then the second one was my brother. And he said to me, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And he said to me, why don't you come and do some cross training? So like I said, I mean, I was physically broken after that, like just unable to run for a while. And he said to me, come and do some cross training, get on the bike, do some swimming. He had done his first Ironman in the build up to that Comrades. And he said, come and do a couple of triathlons. Let's see how you go. And he talked me into doing that. And I did my first Olympic distance triathlon, I think in the October after Comrades. So that was June, October there. I did an Olympic distance. And then, again, got suckered into doing a half Ironman distance in the December. And then I ended up doing a proper Ironman 70.3 in January in South Africa. And then he's like, why don't you just come and do the full with me in April? So I was like, oh, I've done a couple of halves, so I might as well go and do a full. So I did another half, and then I did the full in April. And this photo was actually, I did Ironman Zurich a couple of years ago, and that was me finishing Ironman Zurich. But yeah, I ended up doing Ironman South Africa in 2011. That was in the April. And yeah, I was just in so much better shape, Jim, to be honest. Like, I had a year's more experience, another year of consistently training. I had lost a hell of a lot more weight because I was cross-training. And that's probably the thing, too, that I regret, is I didn't realize there's just so much running you can do when you are super heavy. Like, you've got to figure out a way to lose the weight, and more running is not going to help because you're going to break down. So the cross training, the swimming and the cycling just made the world of difference. So yeah, I had a.
And you said to me before that until this year, every single Comrades you finished, the previous 3 Comrades, you always had an Ironman in the build-up.
Yeah, I'd never finished the Comrades unless I'd done an Ironman 6 weeks out until this year. So yeah, that's quite interesting.
That's why I was only 1 second in it. You kind of think you should have got that Ironman in there. Yeah.
Don't even joke. I'm looking at my race calendar for next year, and I'm seriously considering doing another Ironman.
That's obviously the secret sauce. Yeah. Although, I mean, to be honest, I've done both, and I'm not sure I could do them 6 weeks apart. I really, honestly, just can't imagine how you would even come close to doing that. But the thing I love about this picture, so this is Zurich, this is further down the line for you, but what's going on in this picture? Again, this shirt thing, long sleeve shirt, t-shirt over the top. And what is the t-shirt? It's a Comrades t-shirt in an Ironman. That's sacrilege.
It's so funny, Jim, because this race was hilarious. I mean, obviously I'm in Zurich. I don't know anybody in Zurich, but I'm wearing a Comrades shirt on the run. And it must have been about 3 or 4 Ks into the run. One of the spectators, and he wasn't even there to support Ironman. He was walking. He lives in Zurich. He was walking to wherever he was going, and he saw the Comrades shirt, and he was a runner, but he obviously had lots of questions. And he literally ran with me for about 30 kilometers asking me questions about Comrades because he wanted to come and run the race at some stage. And I was the first person he'd ever met that had run Comrades, which is hilarious.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay, so time flies, Brad, and wow, I'm really kind of enjoying kind of this chat. There's so much more that we can talk about. So let's talk about a couple more things then before we have to wrap. But just your current job. So you, for the last few years, you worked with Lindsay Parry, the coach Lindsay Parry, with Coach Parry. The two of you are the main partners. We've talked a lot about motivating, and I'm going to come back to you with a question about your own motivation. But you have so much exposure to amateur athletes on such a grand scale. Your job is to support them to achieve their goals and ambitions. What kind of sense do you get on a whole if someone to say what motivates amateur athletes? What are the things you see? I mean, it's a really tough question. I'm sure it's so varied, but do you pick up any themes about what makes people tick to do all the stuff that we do?
Yeah, Jim, it is so varied, and it's such a difficult question to answer because everyone is unique, and that's one thing I've realized is there's no one size fits all. Like what fires me up won't fire you up, and what fires you up won't fire the next person up. But you've got to find something, especially if you're doing like really long and hard things. I'm convinced that as human beings, we've become softer in today's day and age. Like if you think about like our parents and their parents and what they had to endure to make a living, like just to get by, and the stuff that they had to do. Like I always joke with my kids, like I say to them, like, you don't know how tough it is. I had to walk barefoot in the snow to and from school every morning. I mean, we don't get snow in South Africa, but that's what I tell them, just to make them realize that they've got it pretty good. And I think we've forgotten, as humans, we've forgotten how to do hard things. So I think you do need some sort of motivation to put yourself in that situation, first of all, and second of all, to push through when things get really hard and you want to give up. Because that's the thing with these long endurance events. There are going to be stages where you're telling yourself you can't do this. And if your motivation's not there, or if your why for doing it's not there, it's just easy to give up. And
it's impossible if you don't have a strong why. It's
in those moments where your why, and I think it changes over time too, which is quite interesting. I actually just had this conversation with Lindsay prior to this call, and in my running and athletic career, there's like two distinct careers essentially. When first time around, like pre-Comrades this year, it was very much about performance and how fast can I go and what can I do, and I went through a stage, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I actually stopped too, is and I think a lot of triathletes fall into this, where you get burnt out, especially if you're doing Ironmans, because it's a lot. And if you are chasing age group honors and you're chasing, like I managed, again, as a unit, and this isn't to brag, but I'm a big guy. I managed to get my half Ironman time down to 5:06. Like I've got a 5:06 half Ironman, which is like ridiculous for somebody who's 6'7". And at that stage, I still weighed 120 kg. So it shouldn't happen. But I was really driven by performance. I wanted to see how fast I can go. I wanted to see how fast I could do an Ironman. But second time around, it's very different. Like I'm not outcome oriented; it's more process oriented. So I'm loving just being able to do these things again. And because I had a gap where I was chasing a career and family, and it was, I really did miss it. Like it was something that I loved doing and wasn't able to do. But now it's been a long slog to get back to being able to do it. But I'm just loving that. I could
can
do
I
it.
dig into something you said earlier on, where you talked about upping the stakes by telling people that you're doing stuff. And before we came on, I was just contemplating the brief chat we had beforehand around you telling me about your parents, and then the dad being a Comrades runner, and them not being keen on you playing rugby. And I guess that whole bit about they didn't even come and watch you play rugby because they were so unkeen for you to be doing that, then resonates through to now you're doing running and Comrades, which is their thing, and your mum loves it, your dad has done it. Do you think you were doing it for them, or were you doing it for you? Was there anything in that whole area?
Yeah, Jim, I think there definitely was a part of that. I mean, I haven't dug too deep in it, but as I get older, I realize things. And when you can start putting yourself in your parents' position when they did things in their lives, and yeah, I think there definitely is an aspect to that, like almost seeking approval from them for doing it. But it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is, but like just to follow on, like I was thinking about it in the build up to Cape Town this year. My wife had 1 or 2 health issues. She was supposed to run, and we ended up in the emergency room on race day. With obviously the race was cancelled, but we wouldn't have been able to run anyway because she was rushed to hospital. And my mom passed away when she was 59, and I was thinking about, like, when she was first diagnosed, how old my dad would have been, and he would have been in his late 40s, which is how old I am now. 3 young kids, and this is like sort of, I'm going through the same sort of thing. Not that my wife is deathly ill, but she's had health issues. And I'm going, chish, like, it's amazing how my perspective of what he did and like the things he did at the time, now that I can almost empathize and put myself in his position because I'm in that position, it's a totally different perspective. So yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. And I think at different stages in your life, the answer is different. So yeah, it's super, super interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. That's why I'm really enjoying. I mean, this podcast started as a little bit of a thing for our little triathlon club, just an internal get to know each other. But I've been discovering so many things about people's stories that are just absolutely amazing, and including here, stuff that's been coming out in this. It's so much fun doing this, and it's so interesting digging into it. But time is against us, so let's start to wrap with a couple of questions around firstly about what do you think is harder? I asked you this before. What's harder, an Ironman or Comrades Marathon?
On the day, Comrades is way harder than Ironman. Like, you can't even compare the two. It is like chalk and cheese. Training wise, training for an Ironman is way harder than training for Comrades. So it's probably magnitudes the same, but flipped around. So like if Comrades is 10 times harder on race day than an Ironman training is 10 times harder than Comrades.
Indeed, I totally agree. I've got 1 Ironman, 4 Comrades, and that experience is exactly the same. Just the time you've got to put in between the swimming and the biking and the running, and at least with the running, actually most of the time you've got to be recovering from your runs, so you get downtime, but you don't get that downtime in the Ironman training. But then on the day, that last part of I remember my second Comrades, I got to about 2/3 of the way through it, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I remember this pain. I remember the stress of this. I remember how difficult this is now. How did I not remember this before I entered a second time? Why did I think this was a good idea to do it again?
Tim Noakes, the famous South African sports scientist, in his book, The Law of Running, said that if humans remembered pain, no one would run Comrades twice. So
or have babies, I'm sure. Yeah.
No, but that's exactly it. But Jim, the interesting thing about the difference between the two is you can fudge an Ironman, and I have. Like, you can go in there with very minimal training and limp your way through it because you've got so much time. And if you like the course, generally there are some tough ones, but generally Ironman courses are quite forgiving. So you can fudge it. You can get through there. Whereas Comrades, you can't fudge a Comrades. There is nowhere to hide.
If you are not prepared, it's going to catch you.
No, it will find you out on race day at Comrades. That is for sure.
Future plans, Brad. Last question.
Yeah, Jim, I just want to keep loving doing things. So like, yeah, I've entered Comrades. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like, I just want to keep doing this for as long as I humanly can. Like, I want to be physically fit enough that I can keep moving. And if I decide that I want to go and run a marathon on a whim, I'm going to go run a marathon on a whim. Or if there's a bike race I want to do, or if I want to do a triathlon. So just, yeah, I think that is more than anything is just celebrating start lines more than finish lines. So.
Yeah. And managing the process, managing your body, keeping it kind of measured and not doing anything too crazy, because there's plenty of years ahead to do it slowly. You don't have to rush it all next week or the next month.
And I'm blessed, Jim. I'm under no illusions that I won the lottery with regards to where I was born and the upbringing I've had. I get to live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Climate is amazing. One of the best places to ride a bicycle. One of the best places to run. Some cool swimming here too. So Cape Town is phenomenal. And if as long as I can keep enjoying the city I live in and be out with mates and have a cup of coffee and a good laugh, then life's good.
Brad, we met in, I think, 2016 at the Comrades Expo when I was coming out to do my first attempt to get the Bill Rowan that I missed in 2000, just before my mum passed away. I actually missed it again in 2016, but because I'd met you, I became a massive Coach Parry enthusiast. I started using your platforms, your coaching plans, all of your online webinars and training, and forums for questions. Followed every one of your monthly webinars over that whole kind of 2-year period, because I set myself a 2-year target, and absolutely smashed it in 2018, thanks to you guys. So I've known you since then. I've slowly but surely heard your story over those years. There's elements of it today that I hadn't heard before, but oh my God, that's such an amazing story. So thank you so much for coming on to tell us the story. Thank you so much for all you do in support of all of us that are using Coach Parry to achieve our dreams and goals. And good on you, mate. Thank you so much.
No worries, Jim. Thank you. And just you did the work. We just the tool. You're the one who put in the hard work. So as much as you want to give us credit, at the end of the day, it's all you're doing.
But the good thing is you guys do it too, so you know what we're doing, and you can empathize with it, and you can and there's such a wide variety of you there that have got all sorts of different skills, backgrounds, and experiences. So the combination of it is brilliant. So although it wasn't notionally sponsored by Coach Parry at the beginning, we're finishing with a sponsorship and a plug for Coach Parry. People, if you aren't using Coach Parry, you should be. They are amazing. Brad, thank you so much. Talk to you soon. And South Africa, France coming up soon. We've given away when this has been recorded, but big game coming up.
Massive. Can't wait. Cannot wait.
All the best, mate. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Jim.